What would you do if someone you trusted, someone you welcomed into your home, stole from you? Not just money, but precious memories, irreplaceable keepsakes, and your sense of safety. I was young, married, and pregnant when it happened to me. But instead of letting it break me, I turned the tables in a way they never saw coming. Here's how I made a thief pay for every single thing she took, and taught her a lesson she'll never forget. If you've ever felt betrayed by someone close, hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment if you've ever had to fight for justice when no one else would. This is a story where trust is shattered, but karma is delivered, one calculated move at a time. Let's dive in. Let me take you back to a time when I was still learning the hard lessons of adulthood. I was young, barely out of my teens, married to a man who came from money, and pregnant with our first child. On the outside, it looked like I had it all, a beautiful home, nice things, a future that seemed secure. But inside, I was lonely. Most people my age were still in college or even high school. The few who were married and pregnant were much older, in a different world entirely. I was stuck in between, desperate for connection, for friendship, for someone who understood. That's how I met her. Let's call her Emily. She was finishing her senior year in high school, a couple years younger than me, but we'd gone to the same school and had friends in common. She started coming over to my house, hanging out, sharing stories about school, about life, about dreams for the future. I wanted to believe we were building something real, a friendship that would last. I remember the first time she came over. She was all smiles, complimenting the house, asking about the baby, telling me how lucky I was. I felt seen, for the first time in a while. She'd bring over little gifts, homemade cookies, a funny card, a magazine she thought I'd like. I thought, maybe this is what real friendship looks like. But there were little things, even then, that didn't quite add up. She'd ask questions about what things cost, or make comments about how fancy everything was. I brushed it off as curiosity, or maybe a little envy. I wanted to be generous, to share what I had. One evening, Emily asked if she could bring a friend over for dinner. I said yes, eager to be the gracious host, to show that I could be generous and welcoming. The night was ordinary, laughter, food, the easy comfort of people who think they're safe. At one point, Emily's friend asked to use the restroom. My husband and I explained where it was, trusting that she'd find it herself. She disappeared around the corner, and came back a few minutes later. Nothing seemed out of place. The night ended with hugs and promises to do it again soon. But a week later, I noticed something was wrong. I couldn't find my pearl earrings, the ones I wore on my wedding day. They were part of a set my husband had given me, pearl and diamond, delicate and perfect, a symbol of everything I thought my life would be. We tore the house apart, searching every drawer, every pocket, every corner. My husband tried to reassure me. You probably just set them down somewhere. They'll turn up. But I knew the last place I'd had them was at home. And I knew, deep down, that something was very, very wrong. Days passed. I tried to move on, to focus on the baby, on the future. But then, another blow. I checked one of our checking accounts, the one we'd set up as a business account for my husband's side hustle. It was massively in the negative. Almost $1,000 gone, most of it overdraft fees. My heart pounded as I called my husband. Did you use the debit card for this account? He hadn't. Neither had I. We started reviewing the charges. Store after store at the local mall, places where teenage girls would shop. Dozens of small purchases, each one followed by a $25 overdraft fee. The total theft? About $1,000. I felt sick. Violated. We hadn't had many people over. The debit card was kept in our master bedroom, tucked away. It didn't take a detective to figure out what had happened. And suddenly, the missing earrings made sense. The pieces clicked together, each one a fresh stab of betrayal. Anger doesn't even begin to describe what I felt. My hands shook. My mind raced. I'd opened my home, my life, to someone I thought was a friend. I'd cooked for her, listened to her, tried to be there when she needed someone. And this was how she repaid me. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at the empty jewelry box, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. My mind replayed every moment, every laugh, every compliment, every time I'd let my guard down. I felt foolish, exposed. I wanted to scream, to cry, to throw something. But I just sat there, numb, letting the reality sink in. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I started calling every store at the mall, asking if they had security cameras. Most didn't. But one store had just installed cameras because of recent shoplifting. They told me they had footage from the day in question, and while they couldn't give it to me directly, they'd provide it to the police if I filed a report. Next, I called the bank. I asked about declaring the charges fraudulent. They said they'd need to investigate, and that I had a limited window to make a claim. The overdraft fees wouldn't be reversed unless I declared the charges fraudulent. I did the math. The cutoff for felony charges was $2,000. My earrings were worth about $800. The checking account was down about $1,000. That was enough. I called Emily. My voice was calm, but inside, I was a storm. I have some bad news, I told her. Someone who was at our house stole from me. My pearl earrings are missing, and someone took a debit card from our bedroom and went on a shopping spree at the mall. She sounded shocked, sympathetic. That's terrible, she said. I can't believe someone would do that. I let her talk, watching for any crack in her story. Then I told her a little white lie. We're going to pursue felony charges. Between the jewelry, the charges, and the fees, it's over $2,000. The police are getting involved. She was quick to point out that there was no way to prove who used the card, since most of the stores didn't have cameras. Bingo. She'd just confirmed what I already suspected. That's when I dropped the bomb. Actually, one of the stores just installed cameras. They're preparing to hand over the footage to the police. Silence. Long, heavy, suffocating silence. Then she mumbled something about having to go and hung up. 30 minutes later, she called back. Can I come over? She asked, her voice tight. She showed up at my door, not just with my pearl earrings and debit card, but also a small diamond ring I'd inherited from my great-aunt, a ring I hadn't even realized was missing. She had a story, of course. She hadn't stolen anything. It was her friend, the one who'd asked to use the bathroom. She'd snuck upstairs, taken the jewelry and the card. Emily claimed she didn't know, that she was just as shocked as I was. But when I pointed out that she'd clearly known about the theft and said nothing, she started to cry. I was in a difficult spot, she sobbed. I didn't want to betray my friend. I stared at her, feeling nothing but cold resolve. You didn't betray your friend, I said. You betrayed me. She confessed that there were others involved in the shopping spree, including herself. She'd been happy to spend my money, to enjoy the thrill of getting away with it, until the consequences caught up. I made it clear, I wanted all the names, and the parents' contact info. If I didn't get it, I was going to the police. She gave me everything I asked for. I called the parents. I told them what their angels had done. I explained that I was willing to let them repay the full amount, every cent of the charges and overdraft fees, if they did it quickly. If not, I'd file fraud with the bank and press charges. The parents were horrified, apologetic, desperate to make things right. Over the next few weeks, the four of them got jobs, worked long hours, and paid me back. Emily tried to argue about the amount, saying it was more than they'd spent. I explained, in detail, how the overdraft fees worked, and how their little spree had cost them 3 or 4 times what it would have if they'd just used their own money. She asked for more time. I asked her why I should trust her, given everything she'd done. She had no answer. I remember one day, Emily called me, her voice trembling. "It's just so hard," she said. "I'm working every day after school, and I barely have time for anything else. Can't you give us a little more time?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything she'd put me through. "Emily, you stole from me. You lied to me. You put me in a position where I had to fight to get back what was mine. Why should I take any risk for you now?" She was silent for a long moment. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I really am. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. In the end, I got all my jewelry back. I was repaid for every dollar they stole, every fee they racked up. And I never spoke to any of them again. But the real victory wasn't just in the money or the things. It was in reclaiming my sense of self, my boundaries, my power. I learned that sometimes, the people you trust the most are the ones who can hurt you the deepest. But I also learned that you don't have to let them define you. I started to rebuild. I focused on my family, on the baby growing inside me, on the future I wanted to create. I let go of the anger, the hurt, the betrayal. I refused to let their actions poison my life any longer. Looking back, I realized that the hardest part wasn't losing the things, it was losing the trust. But I also realized that I'm stronger than I ever knew. I stood up for myself. I demanded justice. And I got it. For Emily and her friends, the fallout was swift and brutal. They lost their parents' trust, their freedom, their easy summer. They learned that actions have consequences, that betrayal comes with a price. For me, the victory wasn't just in getting my things back. It was in knowing that I'd stood up for myself, that I'd refused to be a victim. I found peace in the justice I'd created. I learned that sometimes, you have to be your own hero. That trust, once broken, can never be fully repaired, but you can always rebuild yourself, stronger than before. If you've ever been betrayed, remember, you have the power to fight back. You don't have to accept injustice. Stand your ground, demand what you deserve, and let karma do the rest. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life tales of justice, karma, and self-respect. Have you ever had someone betray your trust? Share your experience in the comments, I'd love to hear it. And remember, sometimes